Good morning to the guests of honor, Judge Chavez, and your beautiful bride. I feel like we've met, but I usually just try to I'm so excited, and try to shrink away, which is hard for a 200-pound, 6'3" black guy in New Mexico. But I got to know you real well over the past week or so, and this is going to do that. If you don't know, and we all do because we're here for the justice, how humble Justice Chavez is. He's the only guy that will wear a name tag to an event where he's the guest of honor. That I immediately knew, without having read the name tag, that I was like, man, this is where I'm supposed to be. Uh-oh, or here. I'm supposed to be here, or here, or here. No, it don't like me. Okay. But besides this being the best hall pass ever, and my con rights teacher sends her congrats. I think the irony of me standing here as a poet in this community, doing a lot of I like to think doing a lot of the same work as you all are doing on the other side of the bar, or underneath it, as poets are wont to do, is the fact that, being a poet, which is a hyperbolic art form, it's often described in hyperbolic ways, and people are like, poets speak the truth. I don't know if that's always true. We try to reflect the truth, but it's irony that they call poems truth and what you all do opinions, because what you all do is the truth, it's fact, it's law. I was excited when Heather approached me about the opportunity to do this summer when I was clerking at a firm in town. Shout out to Rothstein Donatelli. That I was like, well, this is going to be great because it's both my old world and the new world I'm trying to come into. I don't get a lot of opportunities to do that together. Usually I'm trying to do one or the other and juggling it poorly. But when she mentioned the assignment, the homework assignment, and I was like, that is serendipity, because I literally just read about Judge Chavez in the Bar Bulletin when your beautiful, heartbreaking, and somehow inspirational essay on this journey with ALS. And I had read it literally 3 days before Heather and I met, so it made it even easier to say yes, because I was already moved to tears, really, reading that piece of writing. Good poets spend as much time listening, reading, and watching as they do writing. So I don't necessarily profess to be a good poet, but I know that good poets taught me that. And so I did that in preparation for what I'm going to share today. Listening to some of the folks that stood right here that have told me stories, right? Because poets collect stories about you. So I want to give a shout out to Justice Richard Bosson. I want to give a shout out to Denise Chanez, Davina Bruss, Professor David Stout, Mick Madison, and Damon Eli you're all busy. So taking time to tell me stories about Justice Chavez was awesome of you. So I appreciate that. And I read a lot. I read opinions. Some of those are actually in the copy of the poem, in your own words, some of the things that you were saying as reminders to us all about the ideals we should hold dear, whether we sit on the bench or whether we're a community member, and that influenced this poem. And then I watched, I believe it was an hour-and-a-half long interview that I believe was conducted by the State Bar, and I got to actually see you talk in your own words. And so that was all of the medicine that went into the poem. The style of the poem is a triptych, right? And so it's a movement in 3 parts. Musicians do it all the time. Poets do them too. Visual artists do them a lot more than that. And that triptych is kind of framed in the 3: equal access and justice, equal access to justice. Usually poets sound real cool when they go 1, and then they blah, blah, blah. And they go 2, blah, blah, blah. This is like E, blah, blah, blah. A, blah, blah, blah. J, blah, blah, blah. Give me an E, all right. And it is also a persona poem, which is always hard, because oftentimes when you're writing a persona poem, you don't actually have to read it in front of the person it's about. I like to think of it, when you write a persona poem, you're holding something up as a model, and you're trying to present something that as if they would have said it. And it comes right from them. So it's first person, because I didn't get the pleasure of being a clerk and getting that mentorship firsthand. But it is also the imaginative practice of pretending to be somebody you admire. Or persona poems can be about bad guys and villains too. We're not doing that today. But this term of art that I learned up on the Hill in law school, shout out to UNM, School of Law, which I immediately clung to as a 1L. When they say it's a term of art, I was like, ooh, I should listen now. It's a term of art. One of those terms of art is this notion that you can somehow, I don't know if I believe it yet, but you can somehow shock the conscience of the court. And I thought about you, Justice Chavez, and how you kind of implored us to look at things in a manner where if they actually shock the conscience of the heart, then we are obligated to do something. So before I say the poem, because that was longer than the poem, there was this line that ended up on the cutting room floor, because good poets edit. I say that to all my writing students. Not 50 times like Nick said. That's different. Legal writing is way different. Let me just say that to you guys. But this one was on the cutting room floor, but I felt listening to you talk and give your remarks today, I felt like I should share it with you guys. Didn't make it into the poem. But it says, those of us that no longer want to live in a world where people get the justice they can afford, but rather a society in which we give the justice we want to become. So thank you for that. And now here's the poem. I look forward to be counted among you someday, one day. God help the bar. All right. The title of the poem is Robing Room Reasons, because we love alliteration as poets. And I don't want this to disrupt the flow of the read, so I will put the opinions or the excerpts of opinions that I use that inform the 3 sections. I'm gonna just do that out front, and then I'll just do the poem. So one of those is from Griego v. Oliver. It is inappropriate to define the governmental interest as maintaining only opposite gender marriages, just as it was inappropriate to define the governmental interest as maintaining same race marriages in loving. From Rodriguez v. Brand, West Derry. When litigants allege that the government has unconstitutionally discriminated against them, courts must decide the merits of the allegation because if proven, courts must resist shrinking from their responsibilities as an independent branch of government and refuse to perpetuate the discrimination, regardless of how long it has persisted, by safeguarding constitutional rights. In Edward C. v. City of Albuquerque, another one of my former employers, an owner-occupant of a commercial baseball stadium owes a duty that is symmetrical to the duty of the spectator. Spectators must exercise ordinary care to protect themselves from the inherent risk of being hit by a projectile that leaves the field of play, and the owner-occupant must exercise ordinary care not to increase that inherent risk. This approach recognizes the impossibility, I thought that was clever, the impossibility of playing the sport of baseball without projectiles leaving the field of play. End quote. Unless you are a terrible team. Okay. The poem. Of the people, better yet, e pluribus plebe, a New Mexico in which all New Mexicans get a fair shake, where we hold the right to fall in love sacred, and there will be occasions where we are called upon to separate the rights of customers from those of the corporations, where there may come a time when we are called upon to protect the next generation's future property interests in the present environment, to protect their right to equal access and protection, their unenumerated right to marathon the same mountaintops we did, to know the difference between human rights and wrong, to forego the practice of profit for the practice of law, to fancy ourselves a court with liberty and justice for all. In this business, our opinion is someone's reality. We hold ourselves accountable for accessibility, knowing that there is a whole lot riding on our humanity. Just because it's called a bench doesn't mean it's a game. Every court is the last resort for those with little to no means. The kind of zealous advocacy that believes you've got to lose a little sleep for the things you believe in. That competent representation is not a function of circumstance, it is a constitutional guarantee. Whether you went to college back east or spend summers cattle ranching in La Palma, there is a place for you in this profession, for people who look like you. The kind of court that serves as a mirror to remind us all what justice looks like. When you render a judgment, deliver it with your whole entire body. When age and illness inevitably catch up with you, you will be glad that you did. Just because life isn't fair doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to be. Justice is its own language, and every judge and jury ought to be accent agnostic. Give these cases everything you've got, kid, as though the faith of this institution depends on it, but not at the expense of your family and all the things you love dearly. To remember that the law simply serves as a collective reminder of all the things we as a society deem sine qua non to protect, to be more than curious, to be unafraid to question, to take incredible pride in the amount of labor required to arrive at the unpopular answer, so long as we are just.